Hi, Pam Sorellis from Winged Horse Healing. If you've been listening to me for a while or reading my newsletters for a while, you know that I'm really big on telling animals what's going on. Like if we're going on vacation, or if they're moving, or if their human has died and they have to go live with somebody else, or anything. They want to know, same as we do. And I know a lot of people just don't understand that it's really true. So I'm going to tell you two very, very, very short things that happened to me. And this was when I wasn't a communicator professionally yet, but I was starting to hear them. So it was a long time ago. So my horse, Nikos, who I recently wrote a book about, I had just adopted him. He was 18 years old. I was told he was 11. He was 18. Here's this picture when he was 25. Oop, my gorgeous boy. So that's Nikos. And he'd been with me, I don't know, a month or so. I was getting training in neuromuscular retraining. I was being trained. I live in Illinois, and I was going to San Diego for training for like a year and a half, but I'd go for 2 weeks at a time. So he had just become mine. And this is before I found a natural place for him to live, before I knew that that was a cool thing. And so he lived in a stall with very little turnout. But I went 3 days a week. I had a share boarder who went 3 days a week and gave him extra time out and rode him. And, he seemed fine. He'd been a racehorse, so this was better. And I went to San Diego, and I didn't talk to him about it. I didn't explain how long and here's how many days and visualize it for him. And I didn't talk to him while I was there. I really wasn't a communicator yet, but I could have shared Reiki with him from a distance. That's a way of connecting, Reiki healing. But it didn't occur to me. It didn't occur to me. And so I came home. I was all excited to see him. And I drove, it's like an hour and so whatever, to the barn. And I walk up to the stall, and he saw me coming down the aisle. This is a big commercial barn. We weren't there very long. It's where I purchased him. He turned, and all I had was a big brown butt in my face. And I was like, whoa, Nikos. He'd never done that. It was very clear that it was on purpose. And I said, I started crying. I said, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. See, I'm going to cry now. It was 25 years ago. I had no idea. I just had no idea. So that's one. And he turned around and forgave me for being a silly human. We never talked about it again. And I never did that again. Look at me, I'm crying. And the other time was a few years later, probably maybe a year later. I left my little dog, Elika, my gorgeous, gorgeous little dog that Nikos had sent to me, by the way. She was a rescue. And she was just my constant companion for her whole life. She was a couple years old then. She came to me when she was 8 months old, I guess. Yeah. And so she was just over a year old now. She'd been with me. And I went to Minnesota to work with horses for a weekend to do the neuromuscular retraining work that I do. And she couldn't go because the friend that I was staying with and who had made arrangements for me to work with all these horses had a rabbit, a house rabbit, who was terrified of dogs because he'd been rescued from a dog ring where they used rabbits for bait, which he'd never been, or he'd have been dead. And maybe that's not why he was afraid of dogs. I think it's probably kind of natural for a rabbit to be afraid of a dog. I don't know, but that's the reason she thought. And so my dog couldn't come, which, okay, I understood that. And so I left her with dear friends who she loved. It was where my Nikos was living at the time. It was a small private barn. He lived outside. Totally different deal. He knew I was leaving. He was cool. He probably wouldn't have cared anyway because he was so happy there. And the family, it was two adults, their children were grown, adored my Elika, adored her. She hung out in the house with them. She hung out with their dog. And so they kept her for the weekend. No problem. They adored her. And Saturday night, oh, the story's getting long. Saturday night, I'd finished my last session with horses. I was exhausted. I got into the car, friend was driving, and I heard this little voice said, I want to come home. I said, oh, Alika, hi, baby girl. I'll be home tomorrow. And that's all I said. I didn't hear grief in her voice. It was just, I'm ready. And I'm like, I'll be home tomorrow. And when I went to get her from my friends, she was completely shut down. She didn't greet me at the door. And my friend told me, oh, it's so interesting. We had a great time. She was so good. We went for walks. We did, oh, she's so lovely. But Saturday night, around the time that I heard her, 6 o'clock or something, she laid by the door and wouldn't move. She hasn't eaten since. And she didn't understand what was going on. And I'm like, wow. That's what she did when she came to me. When I told her she was going to come live with me, the people she was with, she did that same thing. She laid by the door and didn't eat for a day till she came. So I was like, oh Alika, honey, I'm so sorry. And I brought her home, and I'm going to cry again. My dog did not recover from that grief. She had been abandoned as a baby for over a week. I thought I'd lost her. I told friends I broke my dog. See, I'm crying. It was horrible. She was devastated. She just went somewhere else in her mind and heart. So, and then I got her back, and she was fine and gorgeous and awesome. And I had to leave her a few times. I had a horse accident many years later, and then another health challenge that same year. I was in the hospital twice. But I was living with my mom at the time, my elderly mom, and she loved my mom, and so it was okay. It's a different story. She still got upset, but it was okay. But this time I almost lost her. And so I just want to reiterate, we need to tell them what's going on. They're not all that sensitive. These are both rescued animals. But most of us, a lot of us have adopted animals, right? Not too many folks here are buying purebreds, or I could be mistaken about that. But a lot of us here rescue challenged animals to begin with. So just a plea. It's not for business, although yeah, that's cool. That's how I make a living. But if you have another communicator in mind, or you are one, please tell them what's going on. Just tell them what's going on, and even check in. Have somebody check in with them if it's a long period of time. You're going to be gone for like weeks and weeks. Have somebody check in, make sure they're okay. I don't mean physically feeding them. Of course, you're doing that, but I mean check in, telepathically via communication, just to see if they have anything to say. So that's my plea for the day. Okay, and also Pam Sorellis, Winged Horse Healing. Check out my website if you'd like more information about what I do, wingedhorsehealing.com, and I'll talk to you again soon.